7 in the morning. The fluorescent hum is so familiar you stopped hearing it years ago. You have somewhere to be tonight. The day is already mapped out in your head before the coffee finishes dripping. Behind the clerk, barely visible, a rack of cigarette packs, a row of small liquor bottles. Nobody is looking at them. Nobody has looked at them in years. They are cheap. They are unremarkable. They are easy to overlook. Right now, those objects have less purchasing power than the coins on the counter. The question this video answers, the one the title raises, is what happens to that equation when the payment systems freeze and the trucks stop running? The answer has nothing to do with those objects. It has everything to do with what the human brain does when the systems holding civilization together stop working. Gold is theoretical wealth. These are chemical levers. In a high-cortisol world, the lever always wins. But gold has been money for 5,000 years. It survived every collapse in recorded history. This video explains the exact mechanism, the history, the neurobiology, the economics that allows a gas station cigarette rack to displace it. Zimbabwe, 2008. A man walks into a market holding a brick of currency. The top note reads $100 trillion. The vendor turns him away. The sun beats down on that brick of paper, and it means absolutely nothing. By November 2008, Zimbabwe's inflation hit 79.6 billion% month on month. A $100 trillion note was not enough for bus fare, not a rounding error, not an exaggeration. That is the actual number on the actual note at the actual bus stop. Most people assume gold steps in when paper fails. It has before. Why not now? The problem is what economists call the double coincidence of wants. Barter only works when two parties simultaneously possess exactly what the other needs. A starving farmer with one bag of rice will not trade it for a metal he cannot eat, cannot divide with the tools he has, and cannot confirm is real. Gold requires a counterparty. In an active collapse, that counterparty almost never exists. Sarajevo, 1990s. A man offers a gold ring and is turned away, not because the ring isn't real, but because you cannot treat an infection with it. The gold goes back into his coat. The antibiotics walk out the door. A bag of AA batteries commanded more purchasing power than a cache of gold rings. Gold stores wealth across a collapse. It does not circulate inside one. Something has to fill that vacuum, and whatever fills it will follow different rules entirely. Not a battlefield, a back porch, but the neighborhood beyond it has been wrong for 4 days. A man sits in a chair he has used 1,000 times, coffee gone cold beside him, hands he cannot stop from shaking. That is not fear. That is the body's emergency protocol running on a timer. It was never designed to sustain. The body runs an emergency protocol when the threat is real. Cortisol floods the system. The amygdala stays activated, not for an hour, not for a day, but continuously. Short-term cortisol is survival. Long-term cortisol is neurological destruction. Long-term cortisol doesn't announce itself. It just slowly takes the prefrontal cortex offline, the rational brain, the part that weighs consequences. And when that part goes quiet, the brain doesn't wait for a better option. It reaches for the fastest dopamine it can find. The mesolimbic dopamine pathway runs from the ventral tegmental area to the nucleus accumbens. Alcohol and tobacco hijack this circuit directly, producing dopamine surges that far exceed any natural reward the brain can generate on its own. Chronic use forces the brain to downregulate its own dopamine receptors. The addicted person enters anhedonia, the inability to feel normal pleasure without the substance. Withdrawal is not a choice. It is a physiological state. The body is demanding what it was trained to expect. Here is the part that matters for grid-down barter economics. Cortisol actively sensitizes reward pathways, priming even abstinent people toward relapse under stress. A collapse is not serving existing addicts. It is creating new ones in real time. This is inelastic demand. Price and rational calculus stop governing the transaction. The seller of chemical relief holds leverage the seller of gold cannot replicate because the buyer's body has overridden the buyer's mind. A World War II prisoner of war camp, cold gray European light outside, mud, wire fences, inside the barracks, commerce. A prisoner holds up 2 cigarettes with absolute confidence. Another nods. The transaction completes in 5 seconds. No haggling. They both know exactly what 2 cigarettes mean. Economist R.A. Radford documented this in 1945. The POW camp was a closed microeconomy. Cigarettes were the unit of account. A tin of cheese, 7 cigarettes. A tin of salmon, 20. Non-smokers accepted cigarettes the same way you accept paper money. You'll never eat. This was not primitive. The cigarette economy had standardized prices, inflation cycles, and its own version of Gresham's law. But it also had a built-in flaw, one that no fiat currency shares. The money was being consumed. Every cigarette smoked shrank the money supply. Sunday nights, supply ran low, trade stagnated, prices fell. Monday mornings, Red Cross parcels arrived, injecting hundreds of thousands of new cigarettes overnight. Prices spiked. Supply shock, inflation, deflation, compressed into 1 week. The addiction economy mirrors modern monetary cycles exactly. Gresham's law, bad money drives out good, appeared in the barracks the moment loose pipe tobacco entered the camp. Prisoners hand-rolled their own cigarettes, hoarded the quality factory-made ones, and traded exclusively with the inferior hand-rolled versions. Buyers inspected every cigarette before accepting it. Post-war Germany ran the same experiment at national scale. The Zigarettenwährung, cigarette currency. German workers paid in worthless Reichsmarks relied on smuggled American cigarettes for all real commerce. The price was fixed and everyone knew it. 1.5 kilograms of bread for 10 cigarettes. Venezuela 2019. Motorists stopped using cash. Instead, they handed the station attendant a single cigarette for a tank of subsidized gasoline, not as a novelty, as the only functional medium of exchange when paper money became worthless. The same mechanism, 70 years later, different continent. Somewhere in the city, a transaction is already happening. A jar of preserved food, a few cigarettes, 2 people who needed exactly what the other had. One of them walks away relieved, the other walks away with leverage. The math works for both of them, and that is precisely what makes it complicated. The merchant is trading a vice to someone in physiological withdrawal for that person's finite food supply. The ethical weight is real. The historical record does not dissolve it. This video is not going to dissolve it for you either. You are going to have to carry it yourself. What the record also shows, abstaining from this economy does not protect the abstainer. It cedes the leverage to someone else, someone who may operate with none of your constraints. The question is not whether to engage. The question is who controls it, under what terms. OPSEC first. Advertising possession of high-value addictive substances in a grid-down environment makes you a primary target. People in acute withdrawal will apply lethal force to acquire the substance. The gray man posture, unassuming, earth-toned, carrying nothing visibly, is not optional. It is survival. Never execute a trade from your primary location. Trading from a fixed base reveals your inventory size, your defensive perimeter, and gives a fixed target for future raids. All transactions happen in neutral, secondary, observable locations. Every time. One more warning the preparedness community rarely discusses. Sudden alcohol cessation in a physically dependent individual can cause grand mal seizures and fatal cardiac complications, delirium tremens. The merchant trading alcohol is operating near medical emergencies with no infrastructure to treat them. The barter economies that stabilized in the historical record did so through reputation, trust networks, and perceived fairness, not pure leverage. A merchant who extracts food for vices from starving neighbors without reinvesting in community resilience creates the conditions for their own elimination. You understand the demand, you understand the history, you understand the risk of holding the supply. What you don't yet know is that the cigarettes in your basement are already dying, and you have less time than you think to stop it. Ceramic jars with rubber gasket lids. Vacuum-sealed barrier bags, each one labeled in the same hand. A small notebook open, filling with entries. These objects did not organize themselves. Behind every sealed jar is a decision about temperature, about humidity, about rotation schedule, about what gets traded first and what gets held back. The lantern light catches all of it. Nothing here is accidental. Factory cigarettes have a preferred consumption date of 3 to 9 months. Natural fermentation accumulates. Essential oils evaporate. The tobacco dries into a harsh, unsmokable state. The infinite cigarette stockpile is one of the most expensive misconceptions in preparedness. Without controls, the currency rots. Preservation requires specific parameters. Ambient temperature, 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. Relative humidity, 60 to 70%, below that desiccation, above it toxic mold, zero light exposure. These are not suggestions. They are the line between currency and compost. Recommended vessels, heavy ceramic jars with rubber gaskets or vacuum-sealed barrier bags with dedicated humidity packs. Not cardboard, not wooden boxes, not a basement corner. If the container cannot hold humidity and block light, it is not a storage solution. It is a countdown timer. Hard liquor is a different case entirely. Whiskey, vodka, spirits at 40% ABV or higher have an indefinite shelf life when sealed. Beer and wine degrade within months and are bulky relative to their barter value. For long-term barter economics, hard spirits are the superior position. Divisibility is monetary design. Decanting hard liquor into 50-milliliter glass vials creates a microdenomination currency. A full bottle is illiquid, too valuable for small transactions, impossible to make change on. The vials are coins. This is the same logic that makes cigarettes divisible to the single stick. High ABV spirits also carry a secondary utility that increases your barter leverage significantly. Documented antiseptic value for wound care. A trader with no addiction still has a reason to accept the item. It has demonstrable survival value beyond the dopamine transaction. One product, two markets. Gresham's law applies to your storage as much as it applied to the barracks. In a mature barter economy, hand-rolled cigarettes are inspected and discounted. The post-collapse banker maintains factory-quality product in controlled storage and never trades from a degraded position. Quality control is monetary credibility. The same gas station, months later. The fluorescent lights are gone. Someone has hung a lantern. The counter is still there, but the transaction is different. 3 small vials placed on the scratched laminate. A bag of rice pushed across in return. The gold coin is on the counter between them. It has been there for weeks. Nobody has touched it. The coin is real. The coin is valuable. The coin will matter again. It is simply not solving the problem in front of these 2 people right now. That is not a failure of gold. That is a failure to understand which phase of a collapse you are in. The addiction economy is phase-specific. Alcohol and tobacco dominate the acute phase days to weeks because of immediate use value and inelastic demand. As markets stabilize over weeks and months, food, medicine, fuel, and tools shift position, gold reasserts when communities begin transacting across distances. Watch how it moves. Communications fail first within hours. Without communications, traffic control follows. Without traffic control, supply chains stall. Within 2 days, the payment systems are frozen. Within 3, the fuel is gone. By the end of the 2nd week, hospitals cannot receive supplies. Each failure is the condition for the next one. Fiat currency does not collapse dramatically. It becomes irrelevant quietly, one broken link at a time. The person who operated in the acute phase with chemical leverage has accumulated food, medical supplies, and community goodwill. They are positioned to transition out of vice trading and into stabilization phase commerce before others recognize the shift. The timing of that transition is the skill. The video's title is accurate in the acute phase. It is not universally true across all timelines. Understanding which phase you are in and adjusting your position accordingly. That is what this video was always about, not the stockpile, the framework. Back at the gas station counter. Dawn light now, pale gray gold through the plate glass. The clerk is restocking the rack. You are looking at those cigarette packs and small liquor bottles differently than you did 10 minutes ago. They are not cheap, they are a model. A lens for understanding how value actually works when the institutions that assign it stop functioning. In the acute phase of a collapse, alcohol and tobacco outperform gold as barter currency. Inelastic demand, immediate use value, and divisibility give them liquidity gold cannot achieve at the point of need. Understanding the phase and knowing when to transition, that is the skill, not the stockpile. Links in the description. Subscribe to Gridfall Survival for the systems that keep you ahead of the shift. Prepare, adapt, outlast.